Welcome back, everybody, to Selling Circular. We've dropped the alliteration just because I can't keep thinking of, I don't know. I don't even know. And I won't do it on the spot anymore. We continue to forget to do this, actually, Sabira. We
Oh,
forget to introduce ourselves to our
yes.
new audience members and anybody who might be listening. I'm Garr CEO of Loop Layer, where we are reimagining the remanufacturing revenue cycle and how do we actually increase product take back. And joined as always with Sabira, who does great work at Reaply.
Hello. I'm the senior product director.
Give him a little bit more. Yeah, give him a little bit
more. That's it, though. There's not much else.
But a lot of stuff you're doing at Reaply, so I'll hype you up. I'll gas you up on all the good work. But yes, the product team leading the way at Reaply on really trying to gather and make digital so many material flows and inventories that are going unused. How was that? Did I do that appropriately?
Thank you. I still have it. I'm not used to hyping myself up. It's weird.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're so good. Today, on this episode, we're talking to Joanne Rodriguez of Mycocycle, which, yeah, so cool. How was your mind blown? So
blown. I'm very excited that we met her, and I'm just, I'm very happy for her and like the world that what she's working on worked out.
Yeah, and cool. Let's just we'll hint at it here. We're talking not mushrooms, but mycelium and the power of mycelium to recycle some hard to recycle inventories that we find and materials that we find coming out of our built environment. So great work there, and we're going to get into that. However, we're going to take a quick pit stop into our nerding out section, our geek out section. However, we haven't landed on the wording yet, but it's my turn to share something that I was kind of nerding out about. I won't be presenting everyone, so that if you're listening, I will be actually just walking us through this, talking us through what is the International Organization for Standardization. So if that doesn't make you excited, then you might want to just turn it off and go to the next episode. But I will make this entertaining because I'm going to bring the heat on the energy. So with that, what is the ISO?
What is it?
Do you know about what do you remember of ISO and hearing it in grad school or seeing it in the market? What do you know of it?
Here's my best guess is that it is somebody, body meaning like multiple people, not somebody,
not physical system. Not
a virtual system of humans. They're people who make decisions about what the standards for a particular industry or process should be. It's almost like a best practices organization that is published, and then you get a certification that you are following such a process so that you are a trusted industry player. So the you, I guess, proverbial you here is like a business or an organization providing some product or service. And you get the certification from.
So you do know. And ultimately, it's now my job to give you more. So
Tell me more.
No, you're exactly right. It is an international body made up of organizations and individuals and academic institutions, all a part of a membership that are making these standardizations a part of our, really, it's focused on our business environment. And so a quick history here is really like much of our industrial complex that was really revving. It came together after World War II. And it was a group of 65 delegates from 25 countries that met to essentially just discuss what it would mean to come together for some industry international standards. With really, as the world was opening back up, it's all about commerce. So it's really about how do we start to qualify and quantify and then communicate all on a set of understood language parameters about the objects that we're making and selling. And so by 1951, they actually created their first standard. And the first standard was ISO 11951. and we're going to get into a lot of those numbers. I don't totally get into the naming convention with the numbers. I'm sure there's more research I could do on that.
There's like 14 and 19.
Oh, we're going to get into 14. Don't get me started on 1400 family here. We're getting deep into it, which is the standard, essentially. So the first one they created was the standard reference temperature for industrial length measurements. What does that mean? Yes, that means the geometrical and dimensional properties that included size and location and orientation of really just any surface or a surface texture of a workplace. So just defining boundaries, as we talked about on another podcast. We're really just defining what these systems are. And so
of a workplace, when you say, sorry, just to make sure I understand, of a workplace, you mean like, you're saying, is this the metrics system of like inches, feet, like that?
We actually get into, it's more based on, I think, honestly, I didn't do it. I didn't dig that far on the workplace. So I'm not going to make something up here. But if I were to guess, I actually would think it's more about I even misread my notes. How embarrassing is this? It says work piece. So it is indeed a physical object. So not a workplace. Yeah, so an object.
A work piece. Makes sense. So this is like how to measure stuff, like length, width, height. Okay.
Exactly. Yep. So, but by 1960, kind of to the point that you were getting at, they actually set out to create ISO 31, which is based on quantities and units. So this was actually for the first time defining a meter as a parameter of length internationally, which we don't have to get into the whole relationship between the US. Yeah, exactly. But one thing that we can all agree on is that a second is a measure of time. And so in that way, it again, these defined boundaries and units of measure and continue to do so, define principles of measurement, essentially.
I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
In the world of AI, there's like a lot of nervousness about the data going in being biased because of the information that we feed AI will be what we choose to input, and that will impact the output. And so I'm wondering, you mentioned, or just something I'm postulating about is, you mentioned like only a subset of countries had representatives to this body. So like, how isn't that also inherently biased?
Yes, and I think that's where that is where their job then really started to become how much more inclusive could they be towards officially recognizing members from countries and making that as international as possible. And so I think I've got it right here. There's 170 members that represent various membership countries. So every one country that is involved will have a representative from that country advocating for their process. And we'll get into, this is going to actually circle back to circular economy, because there's some new ISO standards coming out. Get ready. That ultimately that's where we're at now, is we're actually voting on some circular economy standards. But I'm getting ahead of myself. On this one, you might be thinking, okay, but why is this important? And it's important for really 5 reasons. One, global consistency. So making sure that we are ensuring that the products and services and systems that we use are safe and reliable and are of good quality. Facilitating, as I said earlier, international trade. So once we can sort of establish those parameters, trade can happen. Then the next priority is really focusing on innovation and sustainability. And that's been a big push for the ISO to really build standards around environmental measurement. I will get to that soon. Consumer protection built in there, that kind of speaks to the advocating for building things that aren't going to harm, that are useful, that are protected under some sort of quality and standard of safety measure. So that's food safety, healthcare, and in certain environmental protection qualities, which we'll get to. And then regulatory compliance. So in any business, in any industry, you're looking to have a certain measure to compete against. That's really important. In chairs, you have qualities and measures that everyone is saying, hey, we all agree that this is what a chair should be. This is what a table should be. And that is almost setting the arena by which you can compete on making the best of those objects. And so therefore facilitating and just being the best crafts organization to make that thing, the best manufacturer. Any question there? I saw something percolating.
No, I mean, all of those, what's interesting about the standards is like, it has almost unlocked the linear economy, right? Like by creating international the standards,
Yes.
I'm almost thinking about of like the infrastructure, the railways, the language through which we can communicate and agree upon what something is and what quality should be. And you can allow competition. Great. Now you and I are competing to make the best share.
Yes.
And we are trying to survive, and we're making something wasteful.
And we get to that from actually an environmental standpoint too, is that becomes more of a question as people claim more and want to aspire to be more environmentally focused and conscious to gain consumer attraction or consumer preference. That's where actually the first 1400, as we get to the 14,000 family of environmental management comes into practice. And actually it was the first ISO standard that was really based on helping the environmental management aspect to organizations to minimize their operations that negatively affects the environment, to build in compliance ordinances that could be applicable with laws and regulations and other environmentally focused requirements. And so that was the first one. And that's the one that I was introduced to, because I used to see that a lot in sustainability. And so when it comes to then sustainability, it really, after that 14,000 ISO measurement, it then starts to really focus on, it doesn't really focus on, but it starts to incorporate more of these aspects into the ISO requirements and different agreed upon metrics and definitions that can add to a codified understanding of what we're aspiring to be from an environmental standpoint. And so really now the range of topics are from ISO 14001, which is environmental management. They get into other ISO numbers and certifications and processes that involve energy management, social responsibility, sustainable event management, greenhouse gas management. So these are the standards by which any company that's looking to define themselves can look to and open the book and say, oh, this is how we're going to operate now.
Like.
Right. And this is what good looks like. And this is what, in terms of being certified and understanding the metric and the bar that we need to meet, this is what it will take. And why I bring all of this up is we are now in the later stages of the ISO defining what circular economy is. And it's actually been in our industry something a lot of people have been waiting for, as we have now gotten together to start to codify these definitions. Voting on the final proposal actually began on February 20th. So
3 days
only
ago. Wow.
3 days ago. Yeah.
From when we're recording.
So this is like breaking circular economy news. And so it actually will end on April 16th when they actually come together and make sure all the votes are together to say, yes, this is now what we will be defining as the circular economy definitions going forward. And that's everything from what circular economy is to what a linear economy is, to all the different, frankly, like projects. And some of the definitions include really just scoping out circular economy, circularity aspect, system boundary, systems and focus, circularity performance. So all of these will be set out so we can start to equally discuss them across our industrial and economic systems and business operations. Right now, the voting process, and then we'll kind of close this out, but the voting process simply goes from the proposal stage. Now, this has been going on for actually about, I think it's the last 3 years. So they started this process in the proposal stage and have worked their way through the preparatory stage, the committee stage, the inquiry stage, and now they're at the approval stage. And so we'll actually end at the sixth stage of the publication process, where then we will get to have that be revealed to the broader public and those that of us that really care from circular economy. So how we tie that back into Mycocycle, there's probably some way, and maybe Joanne would actually know how that would tie into mycelium health and building materials. But ultimately, I think that will probably, if I could even opine a little bit here, it's going to be around how are these things going to be recycled? What are the process of which these things can be recycled, and start to track the circularity of built environment materials when they go through a mycelium process. What does that mean? And so ultimately, this will get built into that. And so with that, any other questions, Sabira, on the ISO? This was a pretty good shotgun approach to explaining it.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool to hear because like, you know of it as a concept, but what does it actually mean? How did it come together? That was really helpful. And I'm just psyched for Mycocycle.
Yeah. On that note, Joanne Rodriguez coming up hot. We just got, speaking of geeking out, we just got to geek out and really just talk to her about what it means to build a company, what it means to build a company with the bottom half of a mushroom. But it's not just the bottom half, because mycelium go everywhere and they're used for so many different applications. And we get into it by what does it mean to train mycelium? So enjoy Joanne Rodriguez right now. We are going to take a first big leap into the understanding of mushrooms and mycelium. I think this is this is all of what Sabira is about. So this is, for probably many of our listeners, maybe a first step in understanding both the applications, but maybe even if we want to just step into the difference between what might be the fruit of a mushroom and then the infrastructure of mycelium and the benefits and powers that you're harnessing with Mycocycle. Start us off there. Give us that primer.
Sure. So in Mycocycle, we're training mushrooms to eat trash and create renewable bio-based raw materials, effectively decarbonizing industrial waste streams with a specific focus on the built environment. So we're decarbonizing the construction material supply chain. So a little mushroom 101. Mushrooms are natural decomposers. They've been decaying our woods and regenerating our soil for centuries without our help, right? But so a lot of us will refer to mushroom as like holistically. So little mushroom 101. Mushroom's the cat that we eat like on pizza and risotto. And yes, I do eat mushrooms, so that makes me kind of a cannibal. Fungi, however, is the entire body of a mushroom that is comprised of the mushroom and mycelium. And mycelium's the root structure that can grow for miles underground. And so mycelium is got a cell structure that is made of chitin, which is the purest form of biopolymer. And so there's a duality to fungi and fungal mycelium that allows us to not only decompose materials, but develop new materials. So that's a little mushroom 101.
That's so important. I think it was necessary just to get us just a little more educated as we dive into now all of the applications. When it comes to using mushrooms, and you mentioned training, what does that mean to train what people might think of as a plant, which it's not? Exactly.
Those are fighting words, Garr.
I know, exactly. But people might be, well, how are we training these things? And because it's not quite plant, it's not quite animal. These are different things. But what does training mean to these types of organisms?
Yeah, so we have two kingdoms right now. We have flora and we have fauna. There's a huge push to have funga. So thank you, Juliana Fursi, for those efforts at the Fungi Foundation. But fungi are the most like humans of any other organism in the world. And so if we think back to our childhood, even in some instances our adulthood, or to our kids, as we get exposed to things like food, we can grow a tolerance or an intolerance or something that we like and we want to eat. That's what we're doing with the fungi. That's what we're doing with the mycelium. Where in our labs, we can take a waste material, let's take rubber, for instance, and put it with a couple species of fungi and see which grows fastest. So like which is the highest producer, the amount of enzymes that are developed, and then we can work from there to make selections, because the kingdom of fungi is made of literally, like if we just took white wrap mushrooms, there's over 10,000 species in that category alone, but there's over 100,000 or so species that exist in the whole. So how would you ever pick? And that's one of the things we get asked. So we have formulations for multiple things based on this technology of exposing mycelium to waste and training them. And so then we can replicate it and create formulas that are quality controlled and scalable.
So maybe paint a picture for us about Mycocycle. You have warehouses full of trained mushrooms that are processing what waste, and then the mushrooms or fungi are growing, and then you're harvesting that in order to make material. How does this all look if I were to walk into wherever you show up every day?
Yeah, so we're headquartered outside of Chicago in Bolingbrook, Illinois. I started the end of 2018. Yeah, Garr's like, Illinois. Started the end of 2018 filing a patent around the bioremediation of petrochemical containing materials using fungi. That's our core patent, and didn't launch the company until 2020. And that's a funny journey in and of itself. But the core materials we're treating are petrochemical based. Anything that has a heavy hydrocarbon in it, mycelium like, that's what it knows in nature. We can extend that into plastics. So plasticizers are all in construction materials. And I selected that because that's my background. I spent decades in construction products and material manufacturing. So like a little fun fact there, right? And we couldn't get rid of the waste. I'm a former director of sustainability, and people would, for the one lead credit, send it hundreds of miles away so they could burn it. And we still largely burn or bury those waste streams. They're really, because they're complex. But the cool thing about fungi is they don't care. And the mycelium itself is really resilient and robust. And so if you were to come out to Bolingbrook, what you would see is a production facility, an R&D lab. It's not huge. I mean, I will say we just have crossed the 10,000 square foot threshold. So we're in over 10,000 square feet. And that has just happened in the last 12 months. Yeah, it's gone really fast. But we are able to produce tons of mycelium, tons of our treatment in a small footprint. And we ship that to sites, and it gets mixed with waste. And every 2 weeks, we're treating a waste stream. So like real time, we have a project on gypsum in Kansas City, Missouri. And every 2 weeks we grow on it. But we don't ever get to that fruiting body, Sabira. We don't ever have to take it that far because we're not doing mushroom cultivation. We're really honing in on the root structure as the core of our technology. Sorry, that was a little wordy, but easiest way to kind of get to the answer.
Can you describe, and it was funny enough, the biggest barrier for myself when I started to learn more about your work and get to know you was actually what was being created, and the products being created. Can you describe what that feels like? I mean, we'll actually more than likely, and I'm the one editing this, so I will put it in, but maybe some visual applications here so people can see it. But can you describe it of both texture and application for what that product means, so that people can really understand what you're talking about?
For sure. So, like the process in the field is 3 steps. So we ship our treatment out. They grind, like the recycler will grind down the material. So it could be drywall, roofing, carpet. It gets blended with the treatment and it goes into our bioprocessor. We have a mobile bioprocessor called a mycontainer, and it basically is hands free for a couple of weeks where it incubates. Then we stop the growth, and we take those materials and we can grind them, shred them, or reform them. And right now what we're doing, Garr, is we're grinding them and creating a filler fiber, or a filler additive. So basically it's an ingredient. It feels super fluffy, just like gypsum that you would add to your garden. But now it's mycelium plus. And so it might be mycelium plus carpet. So if you know anything about carpet recycling, it's really hard to do. It's filled with plastics. There's backers, there's fibers and intermediate. We could do the whole thing together and create a grind, which is called our Mycofill C. So Mycofill for carpet, Mycofill G for gypsum. Marketing wizards we are. But and so it's very fluffy, and it can be used as just to replace things that we would mine from the earth. Then. So we're trying to make it super easy for manufacturers to incorporate this circularity methodology, maybe treating their industrial waste or the industry's waste, and then replacing something that they already use in mass amounts. Fillers are used every day to create, to extend the more expensive ingredients is the way to look at it.
Where I am coming at from this is, and please correct me if I'm wrong in my understanding, which is what I love about this process, what I love about what you all are building is in our world of circular economy, we're figuring out those intervention points. We're figuring out where can a flow of material be intercepted and then processed. And one of the biggest barriers is the manual aspect to processing those materials. And when you mentioned carpet, stripping the carpet from those separate types of materials, as opposed to processing it and reducing that labor, reducing error in labor, reducing actually then probably there's an economic reduction where the more you process it, the less margin there might be in those materials in the end, because the amount of labor and processes that go into collecting. Is that assessment correct? I mean, is that really what we're finding is value is this is an easier way to process materials, even passively process these materials, because you're letting it sit and grow and incubate and then figuring out the products that it can be applied to.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely true. For carpet specifically, we don't have to separate any of it. We just grind it down. And, one of the intervention points for us, if you look at maybe carpet take-back programs, would be to work with the aggregators of this or to co-house, which is why we have the mobile bioprocessor. We really want to decentralize waste management, make it easy to get the waste where it's being generated. They're already separating it. They already have the contracts for it. So let's go to them, make it easy. We use intermodal containers that are plug and play. They're outfitted for climate conditions. But yeah, we could put it in there, and even that 2-week length of time is far better than shipping it, 500 miles to the waste to energy site, or to go into new recycling methods that are chemical recycling. And I don't want to point fingers, but like some of these things really don't result in a net higher value, and they're far away from reducing the carbon intensity of recycling. And so we're able to take it kind of dirty, and the mycelium doesn't care. The fungi like dirt. That's where they grow. So we found in our process, the dirtier the better, actually.
And before I defer to Sabira here, before I give my time, yield my questions, this is maybe the appropriate time as we're talking about carpet, where you get to talk about the Mycocycle magic carpet ride here on the sweatshirt. So the great marketing that you all are up to with branding this with the companies you're working with.
Yeah, so Magic Carpet Ride's a little project we're doing with Gensler Architect. Their Washington, D.C. office just went through an interior remodel and build out. They wanted to get to zero waste. One of the things they couldn't recycle was carpet. And so we're partnered along with DPR contractors and Tarkett, and processed their carpet. And I don't have an example on me, but I could always send a photo. We diverted that carpet into lamps. We made lamps, like actual working lamps from their carpet. So, I mean, that's not necessarily the highest and best use of it.
No, but we'll need those pictures though. That's quality content. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, like, at least it's an example of the versatility of the application to be able to take the waste and put it into something else. And I think any of the demonstrations at any level are very helpful. And we're really appreciative of this opportunity to work like with a high level firm like Gensler, who is really focused on not only these zero waste strategies as a design firm, but also the advent of new bio-based low embodied carbon materials. And these are the two sectors that we're in the middle of.
I wanted to pull the thread a little bit on the decentralizing part. And you were mentioning a couple of different locations. There's like where the deconstruction might be happening, or like where exactly you're ripping out the carpet. And there's generally the next step of somebody might be aggregating the carpet for a take back program. Where are you locating the mobile unit, and how does that impact the decision making? Like, is it the end consumer of the carpet who actually could make this decision, or is it somebody who has like more volume where it makes more sense to leverage?
Yeah, where we're locating the bioprocessors, so the mic containers, is really contingent on a couple of things. If there is a desire, say for a contractor, to be zero waste on a major data center project in Kansas City, Missouri, which is where we are. We're processing 10 tons of gypsum drywall each month. It makes the most sense to locate with the MRF, the material recycling facility, who's already got the contract. The differential being for him is he had no end market for that gypsum, right? And now he does. So he's selling it as clean compost, and everybody's happy. If we take a major carpet manufacturer, though, who is looking at the plastics within their commercial carpet products, and this is common across the board, they're actually going to be housing a My Container, a bioprocessor, at their manufacturing facility. So we would start to process their industrial waste and turn it right back around to them as a new raw material. So we dovetail right into their supply chain. And then there's some others where you may be outliers, but where there might be multiple facilities, like a JP Morgan Chase Bank. And they have, 5,000 locations. They might have 500 in Northern California. And maybe we just locate with their waste aggregator or take back, and we could service just their waste. The goal for us is to use the My Container to really incentivize recycling, reward small to mid-sized recyclers, but to reduce the carbon footprint of the logistics of recycling, especially for things like carpet and gypsum and rubber. Those are the core products that we're treating right now. Rubber is a little bit of an outlier, but because there's just nothing, they're obsolete. They're running out of space in landfills. Nobody wants them, and there's rising costs. So we're filling that niche.
So tell us also then how you are, what like the business model is, how you're selling the bioprocessor, and what are the plans to scale? And the reason I'm asking is I'm trying to imagine a bioprocessor, like many in every state in the country. Right. Like, how do you get there? Are you franchising? Do you have a big network of salespeople? How do we get to scale?
I'm the big network of salespeople. No, I'm actually, I think that the network, my professional network helps, right? So like years served, as I like to say. But there's been a groundswell of support. We've got people like Amp Robotics and Rubicon as our advisory board members. They've opened up networks to us on waste streams that they couldn't handle, so to get us to clients. But yeah, we're looking definitely at distributed models where we would do hub and spokes. We could we're starting to establish our grower network to satisfy the contracts that will be coming through, and really looking to establish ecosystems then. So we're not trying to ship it all here or ship all our treatments from here. And in fact, we work with SBR Crumb Rubber from artificial athletic fields. So think of football fields and soccer fields. Each one of those has roughly 100 to 150 metric tons of rubber waste. It's characterized as a microplastic. So It's banned in the EU. It's about to be banned on the West Coast. And we have 5 projects approved right now, and the first of which will be in Germany. So we're trying to figure out our franchise model going into EU pretty quickly, not only for growing, but then for treating. And we adopt the equipment that's already out there to make it easy. Like, we don't want all these weird things. But the way we really scale is get into liquid and really, see an evolution of our treatment, the evolution of mushroom cultivation practices to be more akin to biotech, and reduce the touches on it, so we could treat large volumes at a time. That's where we're headed currently.
So that in of itself is an evolution, I'm sure, and you are training yourself to figure out, how do I sell this? Kind of to the purpose, I guess, of, as Sabira was talking about, where do we get to scale? How did we even get to this point? I mean, what was it at the beginning? What were you selling? And how has it evolved? That's always the fun part, I feel like, in circular economy, is we're dealing with system problems with many stakeholders. And that can sometimes cause friction in the sales process, but ultimately that's also the staying power. That's also the impact power. How did that evolve over the last couple of years?
If I had a dime for every dollar that our platform that's evolving was called a two-sided business platform, I wouldn't have to raise another dollar venture capital. So it really started around this problem of asphalt shingle waste. That's the problem I understood. The heavy hydrocarbons that come from petroleum and the reduction of that. And I'm like, this would be great. And then we get the soil like biomass and it's out of landfill and everybody's happy, right? No, because it's not enough to just treat it, right? Now we got to do something with it that is higher value. So that's what I started with, like a handful of spores and a bucket of shingles that I bought at Lowe's and threw with some hay. And that was what the concept was. Now, thinking about this as a new material and really trying to find the lowest point of entry, because I do know material manufacturing, that has been what has been the game changer for us. And we don't need 1,000 customers today. We need customers that do the volume of thousands. And so we're working with multi-global manufacturers, R&D facilities in Luxembourg, France, Germany, that are at the group level. And so we just need a couple of these, and they're the ones and twos in their industry. And that's what's changing the dynamic for us. And so in terms of sales, can we license and franchise and distribute? We could do all of that. The bigger opportunity will be to license and gain royalties on products that are using our byproducts, and that marketplace is being established. And that's what we have to shift for the circular economy, is think about this as a marketplace, as an economic opportunity, where we're not trying to be like a landfill tip fee. Eventually we'll move volumes at such a rate we could just take waste for free. Because we have a higher value end market, right? That's but I mean, if I'm going to get paid for it, I won't ever just take it for free. But yeah, just to be clear,
we're not there yet. Just to be clear.
But yeah, our goal is to make it easier to do, not harder.
In that, thank you, Sabira, too, for one more that I can insert in here, which is, that is the most common problem I try to explain too in any technology growth, is market development. It's like, and we're facing that in sort of any circular economy problem, which is I'll take one, the most popular maybe right now, which is AI, which is great. There's so many applications for AI, but it does not matter how much you're using AI if the product that it's trying to identify and the volume it's trying to identify, or even the value and status of the thing that it's trying to identify, has no sort of secondary market value, has no market established. So I think that's the fun part for all of us, is unfortunately we're doing both. And what you just said is we are both creating and the intellectual property as well as the market into which it can be sold. And for some investors, that's a scary proposition. And so it's wild though, where it's like, no, we're at the frontier of this. What have you felt as though? I mean, have you felt that friction in the sales and investment market? And then how have you overcome that? And I mean, maybe this is really the inspiration too for many entrepreneurs that might be seeing that same sort of multi-sided marketplace.
I mean, it's work as hard as you can and in constant feedback loops, and have some really good early partners that are willing to take the journey with you. But every conversation with a customer, no matter if they're a manufacturer, recycler, um, I always say, don't give me the thing you can recycle. Give me the thing that you can't find value for, and let us start there. We don't talk a lot about it, but our capacity to process plastics is like no other. But there are a lot of people that are in the boon of plastics. We're in the boon of everything that is petrochemical or coming from the earth, and we can give it right back. We don't have to take more from the earth. So I think it's really hard to raise money around a circular economy, because even if then you've stuck the landing on the front end platform, and they're like, well, we need to see all the offtake contracts over here, like you're in your seed stage, you're still early stage, you need the capital, and then they're like, but no, it's too risky, we need to see this. And so I was kind of like, all right, go invest in another app and we'll app our way through the climate crisis. And, with all due respect, but I think for me, Sabira's laughing, right? And let's invest in more AI, because that is not climate intensive or carbon intensive either. The greenhouse gas emissions are horrible. I mean, let's do some more fuel pumps, or, like there's just some darlings of the industry that get the money, and we just have to find our niche, and be resolute about it.
There's an irony there where somehow the money is still flowing to the paths that waste find of least resistance. Like it's like, no, all the innovations, the hard stuff. That's where, for any investor that's listening or even comes across this video, it's like, no, go to the stuff that's hard to recycle. Go to the solutions that are making that easier and possible.
It's going to change industry.
Yes, it will.
Yeah. And what I was wondering is it sounds like maybe how medicine is invested in, like your R&D and your infrastructure building and your systems making is such a long journey that maybe venture isn't the right capital for what we're trying to do in the circular economy. And I'm just curious, who have you come across that maybe has bought the longer term horizon story and sees that this journey isn't going to be a quick, we aren't going to app our way out of it. And it does take more than that. So who out there in the world understands that?
Well, I mean, you always have your conveners, like you have Ellen MacArthur Foundation, you have the World Economic Forum. We were one of 17 companies in the second cohort of the Circulars Accelerator. So they're wholly focused on products and process to serve the circular economy. So you have your conveners. You also have then your funds that have it right in their name: Circular Innovation Fund, Closed Loop. So I think getting alignment for me has been really strong. It's hard to go after, although getting easier to go after the non-dilutive capital via grants. A lot of them would purport to want to support the circular economy, but I don't think they knew exactly what that meant. And so then they would say, well, it's unfocused because you're doing this and that. And I'm like, because you have to do this and that. And so I just think, for anybody working in it and for the investors that are thinking about investing in it, you just have to be aware that you have to do both the things. You can't just do the one thing. If you're out of balance, the supply chain doesn't exist. And so that does take a little bit more time, especially if you deal with corporates, right? We had a revenue mark we were driving for last year. We fell just short. And the last week of the year, every single budget that would have gotten us there came through, which is good for this year. But, in terms of like trying to go after capital, it can be hard. I think looking for those first check writers, I think family offices and angels are very active in this space. They are putting their money where their mouth is because they want to be able to go outside and breathe clean air and drink clean water. And so it makes it easier for them to navigate these waters and corporate ventures too. So, I mean, it's easier. This round was easier than the last. I'm smarter than I was 18 months ago. But I just think the path of technology adoption and the understanding of what a circular economy can and will do to change industry and create Industry 4.0, that has been vastly accelerated. That's what I really feel is happening.
How do we encourage more entrepreneurs, more women to continue to get into this space? I know you've been vocal about this in the past. I don't mean to make it too personal, but your own family, your young family members, even being inspired by your work. How do we continue to make this available to more people and to educate more people on this? I remember a meeting you and I were sitting in where we were lucky enough to be a part of a planning committee for the upcoming Circular 24 conference, which is going to be coming to Illinois, coming to Chicago. And you brought up, again, more representation. How do we bring more people to the table? Where do you find yourself in that advocacy of both an entrepreneur and then everything else you're also trying to do?
I mean, it's a matter of survival. Like, I think I got into the entrepreneurship game later in life, right? This is like, I always call it my great midlife crisis. And I'm like, I'm done with corporate. I'm going to invest in myself. So maybe I have a little bit more confidence about being able to go out there, right? I just kind of walked away from this and said, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to do it anyway. So that could be part of it. I advocate because then it also kind of hypes me up, like, yeah, yes, but the statistics are the same, like 2%. And in 2023, I think it was less than 30% of the investments in climate tech went to women, female founders in the US. I'm one of them. I think if we don't tell the stories, and at the risk of somebody saying, oh, well, she's just railing on again about, underrepresented founders not getting their fair share, well, then you're not the investor for me. There are a lot of investors now. So please step away, because I think it's important. I think everybody has to hear this and recognize it, continue to be called out on it, recognize funds that do really good work for underrepresented founders and for female founders, and then help invest as an LP into funds that are run by women and people that look like us. Because if we want that to change, we've got to start putting our money back in to help those funds that have invested in me and other women entrepreneurs. So I think it's there. You just have to, again, stick to your guns and understand the statistics. It's not a feeling. It's not anything. It's there. It's an alarming fact that women and people of color are invested in at a disproportionate level.
Tell us a little bit about you being where you're at in your career and how you decided to make the leap. Like, what gave you the confidence or the frustration that motivated it? And then hopefully if you can tie it out with why entrepreneurs should consider going on this journey now.
Listen, I mean, it was almost 30 years in a male-dominated corporate world. I would always make 5-year contracts with myself and say, okay, let's, like, at the end of this, let's see what's next. And if I see a good challenge that I can contribute positively to, I would stay here. I kind of got to the end of the 5-year contract and I'm like, systemically, I was just tired. Like, didn't want to do it anymore. Two, I was tired of going to these high level convenings and just talking about, we need another report on climate change. We need another report on the impact of buildings to the environment. We need another report on the circular economy. And I'm like, no, we need solutions around this. We know what the numbers are. So, and then the third and probably most personal important was that, you just see the news around what's happening in the climate, the weather outside. I mean, it's February, it's 55 degrees. This is not normal. And just feeling out of control. And so this was a means for me to at least have some impact that I could control, figure it out. In my entrepreneurial journey, I still don't know what I'm doing. Don't tell anybody. But
I would like to highlight that, though. So maybe not to put too much of an importance on that, but how important that is to be comfortable in the unknown. Yeah. And for everyone that goes, I don't know what I would do, it's like, then get in line, because it's part of figuring it out. And that's what we're all trying to figure out: new systems, new technologies, new solutions. That's kind of the best part. You kind of have to be in love with that.
You do. There's some thrill about it. There's something about like calling through the herd to figure out who's got good advice versus who's kind of full of BS. Because there's a lot of people that are full of BS. And then you like replicate their BS. And then somebody who's a good egg says, that's not really good advice. So like there's that. But like, so I just think, for entrepreneurs, I think if you have an idea and it's solvable, you could see a clear path, but it needs to be developed out. Seek out your ecosystem. Fortunately, I have the very strong ecosystem here in Chicago. That's what I discovered in 2019 when I fully committed to doing Mycocycle. And so that really helped me get in touch and understand, go to the conferences, understand who your trusted confidants are, because you need a lot of support. And you need a lot of people to call and to say, I just don't know what the heck happened here, and then you need your tech support too. Like you need your researchers, or you need doers. Like I don't love numbers. I won't lie about it. I wear my number weakness on my sleeve. And so one of the best pieces of advice I got was, when you hire somebody who'll do the things that you don't like to do. And so now I have a VP of operations who's been amazing, and he's been with us for over a year, and it's making all the difference in our understanding of our business models, our price points, our cost of goods, like all of our efficiency improvements. So you've got to just really know what you need and when you need it, and not be pressed to have like some FOMO because you've got somebody over here that, has raised $20 million on an idea. And then, like you just read about that all the time. You just can't fall victim to it. I do. Like I look at it and I'm like, how did they do that? And then when you talk to them, they're like, oh, I wish I'd never done that. Or like, you know what I mean? So there's always more to the story. There's always two sides.
Reading and wading through that marketing. That is just, it's a skill unto itself. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say,
I know it's coming.
To round down.
I know it's coming. We're going hopeful. We're going, give us hope here. Not to steal your thunder,
Give
Sabira.
us
Finish
hope.
it out.
Yeah. Give us some hope. Why should we be hopeful?
Why should you be hopeful?
We help?
Yeah. What's next? What gives you that drive?
I think like our team expanding and seeing the enthusiasm they have, like on a week like this week when we have contractors in, we have drywallers, electricians, we had an order go out yesterday. Like we're in production. It's we have 2 people sick, but everybody's still showing up and doing it. Everybody's committed to the cause. I think the long-standing relationships that you develop will give you hope. For us, it's like having, the early morning conference calls with the EU and the excitement that's like these R&D chemists have about your byproducts being the new biopolymer plastic of the future that can maybe replace like carpet fibers or something, like hearing their enthusiasm. And so I think when you find it, then and that's, you have to then protect those pieces and really, really build them out and fight the urge to like build something else. Like, see everything through to completion is probably the biggest piece of advice. But I'm super hopeful, and I'm super hopeful for not only companies like mine, but others like my colleagues working in the mycelium space. Mycelium protein is huge. So Nature's Fine, meaty foods, like my bacon, like I can go down the list. Large scale mycelium manufacturing. MycoWorks has one of the largest facilities in North America that is online in South Carolina. They're doing scale animal-free leather from reishi. So we know it can be done, and that's probably the most exciting thing. Like, we're seeing people do it, and so when people are like, "Well, how will you do that?" I'm like, right here. They're already doing it, right? And we could do that too. So I think that's how I wake up every day. You can have a choice on how you're going to be, and my choice is to be optimistic, and like, just let's go get them, tiger. It's like, you have and then just love the entrepreneurs you're around, and love the innovations, and be excited and curious.
I couldn't be more filled with hope, actually, out of that. And thank you for sharing other companies. And I think that's a big tent mindset, where we're all trying to figure this out, and we're bringing more people in, and we're trying to all figure this out, as opposed to excluding solutions. So that's a great leading by example there. With that context, we are going to actually end this podcast, and I will extend that out to anybody else. If you find this of interest, please contact us. Thank you, Joanne. We hope maybe there's other entrepreneurs out there. Maybe we can connect to you, and they want to learn from you. And if you all, please reach out to us. We're happy to bring more people in and connect more people. Thank you so much for the time today. I'm so inspired for the rest of the work I have to do today. So thank you.
I'm so inspired. Thank you, Joanne.
Well, keep telling the good stories of the circular economy. We need them. So
yes, we do.